Have you ever stopped to consider why David proclaimed, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want"? Hidden within this familiar line lies a profound truth, one with the power to completely reshape your life. This verse is not just something to quote in difficult moments, it holds a deeper reality that can change how you live, face challenges, and trust God. Psalm 23 is among the most quoted and beloved passages in all of Scripture. Yet many of us have barely scratched the surface of its meaning. Today, we are going to explore the rich layers buried within these verses. Layers that, when understood, can bring life-altering revelation. Psalm 23 isn't simply a chapter for troubled times. It's a model for living a life anchored in peace, provision, and trust in God's unfailing care. Beyond the well-known words lies an invitation to a deeper relationship with God. This psalm isn't only about comfort, it's about confidence. It's not only about survival, it's about thriving under divine protection. God is calling each of us to step into the full experience of these promises. Are you ready to uncover a truth that will shift your perspective forever? If so, stay with me, and together we'll walk through this psalm and discover how it can powerfully shape your journey of faith. David begins with the phrase, "The Lord is my shepherd." This is not just a poetic expression. It is a personal declaration of God's presence and guidance. To call the Lord a shepherd is to speak of someone intimately involved in our lives. A shepherd doesn't watch from a distance. He lives among his flock. He knows their tendencies, their needs, their dangers. He feeds them, leads them, protects them, and carries them when they're too weak to walk. As a former shepherd himself, David understood this role well. He knew the daily work and the constant watchfulness it required. When David said, "The Lord is my shepherd," he was stating boldly, God is personally invested in me. He walks with me. He knows my journey and takes responsibility for it. This means something powerful for us. We are not alone. Through every twist and turn of life, the shepherd is there. He doesn't just observe, he participates. He walks through valleys with us. He stands guard over us through dark nights. He leads us forward even when we can't see the road ahead. Next, David writes, "I shall not want." This is more than a simple comment about having no needs. It is a bold declaration of total trust in God's provision. In a world filled with comparison, competition, and pressure to achieve, this line offers a freeing truth. You don't need to strive when the shepherd is your source. The word "want" here represents a sense of lack, whether physical, emotional, spiritual, or relational. But David is saying, "Because the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing." That's the heart of divine provision. God not only meets your surface needs, He fills the deepest longings of your soul. This kind of trust lifts a heavy burden. You no longer have to chase after what the world says you must have. Instead, you can rest in the assurance that God knows what you need, when you need it, and how to provide it. He is not limited by your circumstances or abilities. He is limitless in care and generosity. So let me ask you, where in your life are you operating out of fear of lack? In what areas are you grasping, striving, or worrying? These are the places where God wants to step in as your shepherd. Surrender those fears. Trust Him to provide, not only enough, but abundantly, in His perfect way and timing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. This simple statement speaks volumes, not just about physical rest, but about a deeper spiritual renewal. In our modern world, rest feels like a luxury. We're encouraged to hustle, grind, and constantly push forward. Yet here, God invites us to stop, breathe, and rest in His presence. David chose the image of green pastures for a reason. These pastures are lush, full of nourishment and peace. A good shepherd would never lead his flock to barren or thorny land. He leads them to safety, to places where their souls and bodies can be refreshed. In the same way, God doesn't lead us into places of emptiness. He draws us into spiritual abundance. Rest in God's care is not about doing nothing. It is not laziness. It is intentional restoration. When we lie down in the green pastures of His presence, we are reminded that our well-being does not rely solely on our effort. Our strength comes from His provision, His care, and His grace. Taking time to rest is an act of worship. It's saying to God, I trust you more than I trust my own striving. It's stepping out of the cycle of constant doing and stepping into the security of being loved, being cared for, being known by the shepherd. So wherever your journey takes you, make space to rest. Seek your green pastures. They are not luxuries. They are divine invitations to be renewed and refreshed. He leads me beside still waters. Still waters symbolize peace, a kind of peace not dependent on external conditions, but rooted in God's calming presence. In a world filled with noise, conflict, and never-ending demands, stillness is hard to find, but God offers it freely. The waters of His peace are not turbulent. They are steady, unshaken, and always available. Think about the last time you felt at peace. Perhaps it was beside a quiet stream, in a moment of silence, or while watching the sunset. That same peace is what God offers you, not temporarily, but continually. He doesn't just point to the still waters, He leads you there. All you have to do is follow. His peace flows quietly into the anxious spaces of our hearts. It doesn't clamor for attention. It simply soothes, restores, and gives us clarity. When we lean into God's still waters, we stop chasing quick fixes. We stop panicking over every crisis. We simply receive. God's peace is not earned. It is found when we trust Him and allow ourselves to be still in His presence. He restores my soul. These 4 words speak to one of the deepest needs of the human heart: healing. God is not just concerned with your physical health or your outward appearance. He is deeply invested in the condition of your soul. And where there is brokenness, He is committed to restoration. Restoration is not a one-time event. It's a process. God doesn't simply repair what's been shattered. He makes it new. He gathers the pieces of our past, our wounds, regrets, and disappointments, and begins the sacred work of healing. Sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's painful, but it is always beautiful. Restoration means God is bringing you back to what you were created to be. He's not just putting a bandage over the pain. He is transforming you from the inside out. This isn't about perfection. It's about wholeness. And every day, He invites you to surrender your broken places and trust that He's at work, even when you can't see the progress. Do you feel weary, broken, forgotten? Then hear this clearly. God is the restorer of your soul. He will not leave you in pieces. He is putting you back together with purpose, care, and love. He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Righteousness is not about moral superiority. It's not a status or an achievement. In David's vision, righteousness is a path, a journey walked in step with God. It's about choosing to honor Him with our decisions, our actions, and our direction. The path of righteousness is not always the easiest. It often runs counter to the world's values. Where the world prizes instant gratification, God's path may require patience. Where the world praises independence, God's path calls for surrender. But the reward of this path is far greater than anything the world offers. It leads to true peace, joy, and eternal significance. To walk the righteous path is to align your life with God's character. It's about trusting that His way is better, even when it's harder. Every step taken in obedience is a step toward becoming more of who God created you to be. There will be times when the path is steep, unclear, or lonely. But remember this, the shepherd is still leading. His name is at stake. He will not abandon the ones He calls His own. His guidance is not just for your benefit, it is a reflection of His faithfulness, His honor, and His glory. When you choose to follow the path He sets before you, you're walking in a direction that is marked by purpose and divine promise. And even when the way grows dark, you can trust that He is still guiding every step. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. The valley. We've all been there or will be. It's the place where certainty fades, where darkness surrounds, and where our faith is truly tested. The valley of the shadow of death is not symbolic of death alone. It represents any moment of deep fear, suffering, or uncertainty. Notice David doesn't say if he walks through the valley, but though. This means valleys are not optional. They are part of the journey. But David's confidence isn't shaken. Why? Because of God's presence. For you are with me. God never promised that we wouldn't face difficulty. He promised we wouldn't face it alone. In the valley, when it feels like everything is closing in, His presence becomes our strength. The shadow of death may loom, but a shadow only exists when there is light nearby. That light is God. He walks beside us. He never leaves our side, not for a moment. Your valley may look like illness, loss, financial struggle, betrayal, or deep emotional pain. But whatever form it takes, the promise stands. I will fear no evil. That declaration comes not from denial of hardship, but from the assurance of who walks with you through it. You don't have to be strong enough for the valley. You don't have to have it all together. All you need is the shepherd who holds your hand and leads you step by step until you're through. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. A shepherd's rod and staff are his tools of both protection and correction. The rod defends the sheep from danger. The staff gently guides them when they stray. David found comfort in these tools, not fear, because they signified that the shepherd was near, active, and attentive. Likewise, God uses His word, His spirit, and sometimes even circumstances to correct our course, shield us from harm, and bring us back when we wander. His correction is never rooted in punishment. It's grounded in love. When He corrects you, He's protecting you from something far worse. We may not always enjoy God's discipline, but we can trust it. His rod pushes back the enemy. His staff brings us close. Both are signs of care. In a world that often lets us wander too far before stepping in, God intervenes swiftly, not to shame us, but to shelter us. In your life, God's discipline is not rejection. It is proof of your belonging. Let it comfort you. Let it remind you that you are seen, known, and guided. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. What a powerful image. God doesn't just remove our enemies. He blesses us while they watch. In ancient times, sharing a meal signified peace, trust, and honor. God sets the table not in secret, but publicly, in the presence of those who sought your downfall. He honors you. He feeds you. He invites you to feast, even as battles rage around you. This is not a promise of a life without conflict. It's the promise of favor in the midst of it. The opposition may surround you, but they will not prevail. Instead, they will witness your provision. This table is more than a meal. It's a testimony, a declaration that God is not bound by circumstances or threats. When He prepares a table, no enemy can overturn it. You are seated in victory, not in fear. So, if you find yourself surrounded by challenges, know this: God is preparing something special for you. Your peace, your joy, and your blessing are not delayed. They are unfolding right now, even in the presence of your trials. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Anointing in biblical times was a sacred act. It represented being chosen, set apart, and favored. Oil wasn't applied casually. It symbolized blessing, purpose, and divine selection. When God anoints your head, He's not just giving comfort. He's declaring that you are His, chosen and cherished. But David doesn't stop there. He says, "My cup overflows." This isn't just enough, it's abundance. God doesn't simply meet our needs, He exceeds them. His provision isn't limited to survival. It pours out in blessing, in grace, in opportunities to bless others. Overflowing isn't about material wealth, it's about spiritual richness. It's the joy that cannot be contained, the peace that makes no sense to the world, the strength that carries you through what should have broken you. It's the testimony that God is more than enough. Think for a moment. How many times has your cup overflowed and you didn't even realize it? The breath in your lungs, the people who love you, the peace after a storm, these are signs of God's overflowing grace. And it doesn't stop, it keeps coming. You were never meant to live with a half-empty cup. You were created to receive and to pour out. Let the blessings God gives you overflow into the lives of others. That's how the shepherd's love multiplies. That's how your testimony grows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. These are not vague hopes or optimistic guesses. David speaks with absolute certainty. Surely. Not maybe, not sometimes. Surely. This is the confident faith of someone who has walked with God through valleys and mountaintops and knows the character of the shepherd firsthand. Goodness and mercy are not just ideas. They are expressions of God's nature. Goodness refers to God's kindness, generosity, and care. Mercy speaks to his compassion, forgiveness, and patience. And David says these qualities don't just appear occasionally, they follow him. Constantly, daily, actively. The original language gives the idea of being pursued, not passively, but relentlessly. Imagine being chased every day, not by fear or failure, but by God's unwavering love and undeserved favor. That's what David is describing. No matter where you go, God's goodness and mercy are right behind you, ready to restore, forgive, bless, and uphold. This is good news for every moment, especially the hard ones. When you feel like you've failed, mercy follows. When you're unsure, goodness surrounds. When you're doubting your worth, both are there, chasing away lies and covering you in grace. You can't outrun God's love, and you don't have to earn it. Just as a shepherd commits to stay with his sheep, God's promise is to stay with you, through it all. His goodness and mercy aren't circumstantial. They are consistent, steady, and assured for every single day of your life. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. With this final line, David moves beyond the here and now into the realm of eternity. He's not merely talking about going to heaven one day, he's expressing a lifestyle, a posture, a spiritual reality. To dwell in God's house is to live in his presence, to abide under his care, and to experience the fullness of relationship with him, not just someday, but starting now. In biblical culture, the house of the Lord was a sacred space of worship, protection, and communion. David longed not just to visit that space, but to remain there, permanently, intimately, joyfully. He knew that real life, life with meaning and peace, was found in being near to God. This verse doesn't limit itself to future hope, it invites present transformation. When you choose to dwell in God's presence today, your perspective changes. Worry shrinks, fear fades, priorities shift. Your soul becomes anchored, not in what's temporary, but in the eternal truth of who God is and who you are in him. And yes, there is also the promise of eternity. God's care doesn't end when your earthly journey does. His presence extends beyond time. He has prepared a place for you, not just a destination, but a home, a place of rest, joy, and unbroken fellowship, forever. So when David says, I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, he is declaring more than a hope. He is claiming a truth, one that belongs to every believer. God's presence is our shelter now and our home for eternity. There is no greater security, no deeper peace. As we reflect on the full journey of Psalm 23, what emerges is not just poetry, it is a roadmap for life. It starts with surrender. The Lord is my shepherd. It moves through provision, rest, peace, guidance, and even darkness, always with the assurance that we are not alone. It ends in promise, an overflowing cup, divine pursuit, and eternal dwelling. But there's one more truth. Psalm 23 is not a passive comfort. It's an active calling. It invites you to trust more deeply, rest more fully, and walk more confidently. It challenges you to release fear, embrace restoration, and live in the awareness of God's constant presence. Are you willing to let this psalm be more than familiar words? Are you ready to let it shape your life, renew your hope, and remind you of the shepherd who never leaves your side? Because that's what David did. He didn't just write this psalm, he lived it. Through victories and failures, through kingship and exile, through courage and weakness, he returned again and again to this truth. The Lord is my shepherd. Let that be your truth too. As we come to the close of our journey through Psalm 23, reflect on this. How will you allow these promises to reshape your life? The truths within this psalm are not distant ideals. They are daily realities, meant to be lived, trusted, and shared. The Lord is your shepherd. He leads you, feeds you, restores you, and walks with you through every valley. Are you ready to trust Him more deeply? To live with purpose, peace, and assurance? Then step into the promises of Psalm 23 and let them transform your life. Share this message of hope with others. Together, let us build a community of faith, resting in God's provision and walking in His grace. And now, let's close in prayer.